News Channel Fox stopped by looking for me, apparently.
All right.
Where was this?
My roommate just texted me.
Oh, at your house?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, I guess we got them beat. So, this is John Harper with Cleveland.com. I'm here with Anthony Novak.
Hi.
This is Anthony. He has been he made the news recently. Was acquitted on Friday of felony charges after he was arrested and prosecuted for creating a fake Facebook page. So we're going to have a short discussion with him in just a moment. We're going to wait for our post to go live and get going here, and then we'll have a conversation with Anthony in just a little bit if you guys hang tight with us. Seth says, "Hi, Anthony." Gary, do you want to... I'm sorry, I'll adjust the camera. Okay. Not cutting anybody off.
Hi, Seth.
All right, looks like we've got some people watching here. So again, my name is John Harper. I cover the Court of Common Pleas here in Cuyahoga County in Cleveland for Cleveland.com. This is Anthony Novak. Anthony was arrested back in March after he created a parody Facebook page, a fake Facebook page, using the logo of the Parma Police Department. And then to his right is his attorney, Gary Vick. Gary's going to sit in on our conversation as well. So Anthony, why don't we get started? So just for a little bit of background, you had created a Facebook page back in March, early March, that had featured the logo, some of the features of the Facebook page that the Parma Police Department uses. You were subsequently a few weeks later arrested, and just on Friday, or I guess Thursday night, you were acquitted of felony charges by a jury. So let's just start from the beginning, Anthony. Talk about this Facebook page. You know, back in March, you created a Facebook page. How did you make the page? What did you do?
I was bored at a bus stop waiting to go home, and I thought, oh, this will be funny. So I made the page, and I really only used their picture from their Facebook because it was easier, and I did it all on my phone. It's pretty much what I did.
So you actually made the page on your phone at a bus stop?
Yes, correct. Yes.
So what bus was it, if you mind me asking?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know what bus it was. 51C, I think.
51. And does that go to Cleveland, or?
Yeah, I was downtown.
Oh, you were downtown.
I was going to Parma.
So tell me a little bit about kind of the idea behind the page. I mean, you had to think, police these days are getting it from kind of all directions. You're probably going to upset some people at the police department doing this. Why did you? What inspired you, prompted you to take at least a little bit of a risk to kind of upsetting some people making the page?
It just popped in my head. I didn't really have much thought to it. Really, I didn't expect it to go past my friend group on Facebook. The fact that it went viral very quickly was pretty much why I got in trouble, or at least why I got noticed, but I did not expect that at all. I thought I was just going to write some goofy stuff and my friends might laugh.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Let's talk let's talk about some of the posts a little bit, because some of those posts were kind of modeled after the posts actually on the Parma Police Facebook page, and kind of aimed at pointing out some things. What were some of the posts? Talk a little bit about that for people who haven't seen the didn't have a chance to see your Facebook page in the day or so, I guess, that it was online.
Well, I mean, the very first post, which is what went viral, was the homeless one, where I wrote that there's a new law that's on the books that if we find you giving food, shelter, or money to homeless people, you'll go to jail for 60 days. And that was Have a Good Day. That wasn't modeled after anything. That was just something I randomly wrote. And the second one was there was a civil service test in Parma to try to induct new police officers. And that was, the beginning of that was real, and then I changed it. And I said, we're an equal opportunity employer. Minorities need not apply, which is a joke on just cops being racist. And then I said the test was a 15-question multiple choice test, and you had a hearing test, and if you passed, you became a Parma police officer. Mm-hmm. It was things like that that were clearly lies and jokes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Anthony, talk a little bit about, your relationship with the police there. It's certainly, I think there's probably some people wondering, this guy, had he dealt with the Parma police before?
Not
Are you
really.
inspired by some interaction with the police? Or what was your relationship, I guess, with your hometown police department before this happened?
I have no personal relationship with them. I've heard that they're not great. I've even met cops from like Cleveland. If you say you're from Parma, they'll be like, oh, the Parma police. They're not really revered, but I have no personal interactions with them minus this.
Nice.
I had no problem with them, at least then.
Mm-hmm. But you I guess, were inspired to kind of make this page and point out maybe some controversial kind of issues with the department.
Right.
I guess that, Gary, maybe you want to talk a little bit. You were saying that some of those things kind of actually came up at trial. There was some testimony, some cross-examination to the effect of the nature of the post, the content of the post. If you want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure, no problem, John.
aspect of this.
I think, the statute that Anthony was charged under was for disrupting public service, that he attended this Facebook page. The only reason he made it was to disrupt public services. And all throughout trial, they had said that it was the dispatch department. But when you take a look back at their documents, their press releases, and the search warrant affidavits, there was no mention of anything like that. It was purely based on content, which was what our argument was all along, that it's absolutely protected by the First Amendment, that they were calling the content of the posts inflammatory and derogatory. Well, it's been long known that you can make fun of police officers. It's not a crime, and they can't shut you up for doing it. Which then kind of ties back into the fact that Anthony was parroting similar posts on their real page and turning them into jokes and making political statements because of it. But it was all, there's no question in my mind, it was absolutely based on content.
Mm-hmm. So let's, just to fill some folks in here who maybe are just joining us, this is Anthony Novak. He was in the news this week. I'm John Harper. I cover the court system in Cleveland for Cleveland.com, the local news website. And Anthony was acquitted on Thursday of felony charges. He was arrested back in March after he created a fake Facebook page, mimicking the Facebook page used by his hometown police department in Parma, Ohio. So Anthony, talk a little bit about, you made the page, we talked a little bit about sort of your thoughts about the page at the time you made it. Once the page went up and you started getting some attention, describe what happened. Did you get a call from the police? At some point you took the page down. Talk about how it kind of went after you.
Well, it's when I woke up, because I made it the night before at like 10 p.m., and when I woke up, it was starting to grow with shares and stuff. And then I went to work, and it was growing and growing and growing as I went to work. I had no contact with the police at any point. While I was at work, I took a break, and someone mentioned that it was on the news, just like written about. By the time I left work, it was on Fox 8 News at 10, and my friend told me that they could maybe press charges of what the reporter said, so I just went, I'm just going to delete this. I'm not going to get arrested for a joke. That's pretty much the whole day, because I was at work 90% of the time this is up.
So, Anthony, at the time you deleted it, how much reach had you gotten with the page?
The first post, at least they give you some sort of number. I don't know if it's an exact amount of people who saw the first post, but about 58,000 people saw the first post by the end of the day.
So this spread pretty quickly.
Yes, it spread very quickly.
So it sounds like you hit a vein, I guess, in Parma at least.
I guess.
On this, yeah. So you deleted the page. So then what happened? I mean, did you hear anything about it for a while?
No.
The time after that? So,
no, I didn't.
So the next time I guess you had heard anything about the page was a few weeks later, and you talk a little bit about that experience.
Yeah. So my roommate and I were running to the store before it closed, and as I was walking out, a cop car pulled up, and we even tried to walk past it because we're like, oh, someone's screwed. And then they came up to me like, Anthony? And I was like, yeah. And they said, put your hands behind your back. And I was like, why are you arresting me? They said, put your hands behind your back. Never thought about the Facebook page. I kind of forgot about the Facebook page at that point. and then they handcuffed me and said fake Parma Police Facebook page. Then they took me to jail. I was honestly very confused the entire time as to why I was being arrested. Even when they told me the charge I was being arrested under, I still didn't really understand it.
So when you were arrested, and this was, I think if I remember correctly, this was on a weekend. This was
It was Good Friday at midnight.
Good Friday at midnight.
Yes, they sent them out at midnight, Good Friday.
And so you were taken to the municipal jail or the county jail, or?
Yeah, I was taken to Parma jail, and they made some sort of bail there, but they closed before anyone could bail me out. So then I went to county, and I was there until I believe Monday at about 6 p.m. I finally got bailed out of there.
So it's a good 3 days.
Yeah.
What's going through your mind at this point?
I
You said you'd forgotten about the page. You're remembering it at this point.
Oh yeah, at that point.
Talk about that 3 days that you spent in jail. What was that like?
It was. I was supposed to be at work. It was extremely aggravating. I mean, they made a joke that I made into basically a nightmare for myself in my own life. I'm in jail. People are starting to recognize who I am because I'm all over the news, and people in jail are seeing me on TV. One guy even came up to me and he said when he gets out of the shower, he's gonna beat me up, and that's when I was being bailed out. Luckily,
this was in.
it was in county jail. This was the last day I was there. I was waiting. I already knew I was bailed out, and he said that. But luckily, I was leaving within like 2 minutes after he said that. But I pretty much just slept the entire time because on top of it being aggravating, it's extremely boring in there. There's nothing to do.
Yeah. So who ended up bailing you out?
My mom.
Your mom. So after that, that period of incarceration, you get out of jail. How has your life changed? I mean, talk about what was the first thing you did. I mean, now you're facing charges. You're not quite sure what's going to happen. What was changing your life at that point?
What really changed is it was pretty widespread. While I was in jail, it was all over the news. There were even international articles about it. And so everyone I've ever met knew I was arrested for a felony. I had people come up to me and take pictures, but they're only taking pictures because I was arrested for a felony. Like, a lot of people knew who I was. Upon immediately coming home, I was very paranoid, but... So...
And when you came home, I mean, had the police visited your apartment as well, or?
Yeah, while I was in jail, they had raided my house and taken all of my electronics.
You were not there at the time.
I was not there at the time.
You were
that was before. When I actually went home, I had no other contact with them after that, really.
So talk about that. I mean, you come back. What's missing? What did they take in their?
Yeah, I came back and they took a lot of my roommate's stuff. They took his game consoles, his hard drives. They took my laptop, his laptop. They took my phone. They took his phone. They took his tablets. Just anything that connected to the internet or stored stuff, basically. They just basically stole it from my house.
So you came back to a house without any electronics?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, did you have a television?
There's a TV there with nothing to hook up to it.
You have a television. Okay.
He still doesn't have it back.
Yeah, I still don't have it back.
And you guys, and Gary, maybe talk a little bit about that process, because it's in association with crimes. It's somewhat normal for police. If they make a drug arrest, you'll see them seize maybe things related to the arrest or the offense that they're charging people with. Talk about that process a little bit, Gary. Why do police take? What right do they have when they make an arrest? How does that process work, where they seize assets, or I guess criminal tools is the word in Ohio law that sort of defines how they can go in and collect evidence, essentially.
Sure, and you bring up a good point. It's shocking that he didn't get charged with possession of criminal tools either. But the police in this case felt, unreasonably so, based upon all the First Amendment issues that didn't get addressed in the trial court, but felt that they had probable cause that he committed a crime. And so they go to a judge or a magistrate and try to convince that judge or magistrate that they need to get into the house to obtain all of these electronics in order to try and further prove their crime, which you can arguably understand computers and or hard drives there was no reason to take the Xbox and the PlayStation, especially since they were not Anthony's. We thought that was a little overreaching, but they can do that. They can go in and take stuff if they can convince a judge or a magistrate that a probable cause for a crime was committed. And now it's a function of seeing if they're going to be reasonable and return the equipment that probably shouldn't have been taken in the first place back to Anthony.
After his acquittal.
After his acquittal, correct.
And Gary, how does that process work? I mean, is it something where you kind of go over and pick it up, or do you have to actually file motions to request the return of that evidence?
If they don't want to cooperate, we will have to go to the court and petition the court for the return of the inventory that they seized. So hopefully they realize that they cannot hold on to the stuff anymore and just voluntarily give it back to Anthony.
So for those of us, it looks like we have a few more people join in. I'm John Harper. I cover the court system and the prosecutor's office in Cuyahoga County in Cleveland for Cleveland.com, the local news website here. And this is Anthony Novak, who was just acquitted on Thursday of felony charges. He was arrested back in March after creating a fake Facebook page, kind of mimicking his hometown police department in PRUMMELL, Ohio. So, Anthony, we were just talking about your arrest, and you spent 3 days in jail, in the county jail, waiting to be bailed out after they arrested you on a Friday night. You kind of didn't know what was happening. It had been about almost a month since you had taken the page down. Maybe, Gary, you want to comment a little bit on this, too. Talk a little bit about what he was charged with, because at this point he was arrested and he was indicted on felony charges. A grand jury handed up an indictment. And he was charged with one felony count, and that was disrupting public service. Maybe, Gary and Anthony, you want to talk a little bit about what you learned about this charge, and Gary, you can explain a little bit more about what exactly that charge is.
And I can tell you that he was charged with knowingly or intentionally using a computer or the internet to disrupt, interfere with, or impair functions of the police department. That was it. What that means, we still have no idea. We had made an argument and tried to have the court rule the statute unconstitutional because we thought that the statute was overbroad in that it argumentatively criminalized protected speech under the First Amendment, and that the statute was so vague that no one could really figure out what somebody has to do in order to violate that statute. We absolutely think that they have to use a computer to kind of hack into the police department, or to shut down their internet or their telephones. But just the fact that he set up a Facebook page couldn't really have interrupted or impaired any function of the police. And so it was difficult to try and explain this charge to Anthony and why he was arrested. We could never really give him a good answer.
Gary, as a defense attorney, have you defended someone charged with that crime before? Have you seen it before in court?
With this crime that they charged Anthony with?
With disrupting public service.
No, and the statute that he was charged under has two sections. Subsection A deals with a situation where if a woman is getting abused at home and somebody is committing domestic violence against her, and she goes to call 911, for example, and the perpetrator takes the cell phone and smashes it. That person can be charged with a subsection A violation for disrupting her public service or disrupting the telephone service. We conducted an exhaustive research process where we studied and analyzed every single case in Ohio that had ever dealt with this subsection B of the statute. It's never been dealt with. We were unable to find a case where someone had been charged with a subsection B violation and then that section dealt with substantively in court.
And you were just talking about subsection B earlier, but could you clarify again what is you were trying to claim in court that it was overly broad. What exactly does it say?
It says that a person violates subsection B if they knowingly use a computer system, electronic device, or the internet to disrupt, interrupt, or impair the functions of the police. And that's about the wording of the statute verbatim. We went through lots of arguments as to what does that statute actually criminalize. And it was hard to come up with a set of facts that would constitute the criminalization under that statute. And specifically what Anthony did, we couldn't figure out how they could make a case that making a Facebook page interrupted or interfered with their functions. So, and that was the basis of the argument why we tried to have the court hold it unconstitutional. And she just summarily denied everything.
Now, for those of you guys watching, we do not have a representative from the Parma Police Department here today. We had requested a comment from them after Anthony was acquitted, and they declined to procure a comment. But I will fill in a little bit in terms of what the prosecution in the case said. That their claim was that they had received a number of calls through 911 dispatch. I think 10 calls over 12 hours was what I remember. And that this distracted their emergency resources. That these calls about the fake Facebook page created a distraction, it created confusion, and that was sort of their basis for the argument. And we'll get into the trial a little bit later.
Sure.
Anthony, I want to talk to you a little bit. Now that you've been indicted, we're in April now. You've been bailed out of jail. What's going on in your life at this point? You obviously have to retain an attorney. How did your life change as a result of your indictment and over the last 3 or 4 months? What was happening with you now that you're back home, obviously, but still facing some fairly serious criminal charges?
Basically just filled with stress the entire time. I just feel like there's a weight on my shoulder. I mean, my general life was the same. I had the same job. Everything stayed the same. But I had to go to something called court supervised release, where I met basically a probation officer every single week, and I had to take a drug test. So I was basically on probation. So I had to do that every single week. I would wake up early when I had to work just to meet her, do that, then go to work. And honestly, I was just stressed out the entire time. That's pretty much what changed.
And did this affect your job at all? I mean, you said it seemed like everybody who knew you or had ever met you knew that you'd been arrested and indicted. What kind of response did you get from your work, from your coworkers, peers, other people in your life?
They liked me there, so they really just laughed about it. But every single person there had seen me on the news and knew I was arrested for a felony. I had my roommate call me off. And when he called, they went, "You didn't have to call. We already saw him on the news."
Wow.
So.
Yeah. So I guess, some people have to explain to their bosses that they were arrested over the weekend. It sounds like you didn't actually have to do that.
No. Yeah, exactly.
We did that for you.
Yeah, basically.
All right. Well, I'll say on behalf of the news, you're welcome. So Gary, if you want to step in, we'll kind of move, wrap up the discussion a little bit, but we'll move into the trial. You guys and Gary, maybe you want to talk yourself about this. Gary had told me, and I guess I had asked you the other day, but you said you weren't really interested in trying to settle this case for a misdemeanor or making some type of plea deal. Talk about your kind of strategy, if you will, or your approach to defending yourself against these charges. What were your thoughts now? You sort of got out of jail, sunk in. You were really adamant on either
not taking it.
Not taking it.
Well, I didn't do anything wrong. Even when I saw the charge when they originally arrested me and I read it, I was confused that's why I was even in there, because it didn't make sense to me. I didn't even know people called 911 until he told me like a month later. I still didn't really know. So I was not going to take a plea deal. I was not going to go down with the charge or anything because I didn't do anything wrong. And they were, in my eyes, clearly just mad at me, so they arrested me. So I'm not going to drop a charge just because someone's mad at me.
And was there any talk at any time that you were aware of that they might dismiss the case or that?
My attorney had sent in multiple. I don't know. I didn't really hear anything about dismissals or anything like that.
Okay. So, Gary, maybe you want to come in and join us. Let me fill everybody in. We're going to wrap up this discussion in the next few minutes, but I'm sitting here today. I'm John Harper. I cover the court system and the prosecutor's office in Cuyahoga County in Cleveland for Cleveland.com. I'm with Anthony Novak. Anthony was acquitted on Thursday of felony charge after he was arrested earlier this year for making a fake Facebook page mimicking his hometown police department, the Parma Police Department. He was acquitted of the one felony charge that they indicted him on Thursday. So let's talk a little bit about how you guys prepared for his defense and what happened sort of in the trial. What, Gary, were some of the arguments that were key to the case, and what did you do to defend Anthony in court in this case?
Well, I think, John, you've been doing this long enough, and Anthony and I had the discussion very early on that, and especially with criminal cases, a trial should be the absolute last resort. Anytime you have 12 people in the county, standing in judgment over you, it really does need to be the last resort, because you never know what they're going to do. You could put on the best case you think, try the best case you can absolutely try, and it can go south on you in a hurry. And that was part of the stuff that added to Anthony's stress, is I have no doubt that if we'd have lost that trial, he'd have been remanded to the county jail. And he was facing 18 months of hard prison time for this, which sounds absurd as we sit here today and based on the allegations against him, but it's a real possibility, and it's something he had to live with for 5 months. But us as lawyers, we always work for our clients. And it was stated to us very early on that he didn't feel like he did anything wrong. So from day one, we prepared this case as if it was going to trial. And we did not entertain any plea negotiations or discussions. We demanded a dismissal, or we were trying the case. And that's what Anthony and I did. We tried the case and worked hard in that respect. The majority of the trial work was to try and get the judge to recognize the First Amendment issues.
An Ohio man facing criminal charges for making a satire Facebook page mocking the Parma Police Department got the last laugh last week after he was acquitted by a jury that unanimously decided the page did not violate the state's felony disrupting public services law. Anthony Novak made international headlines after he created the satire page on March 2nd and posted jokes like suggesting helping the homeless was illegal for 3 months, encouraging minorities not to apply to the department, and announcing a police-sponsored pedophile reform event that offered sex offenders a chance to become an honorary police officer of the Parma Police Department. Parma Police didn't find the page funny, claiming it was a risk to public safety. 32987D60000578-0 images 17_1459095513148 32987D6400000578-0 images 33_1459096752112. Even though Novak took the page down after less than a day, a SWAT team raided his apartment at gunpoint 3 weeks later, while his roommate sat on the toilet, seizing all of their electronic equipment including laptops, his roommate's laptops, cell phones and gaming consoles. But Novak wasn't home. Later that day, Novak was leaving a convenience store when a police cruiser pulled up. "We even tried to walk past it because we're like, someone's screwed," he told Cleveland.com. "Somebody came up to me and said, 'Fake Parma Police Facebook page.' And then they arrested me." Anthony Novak's mugshot after he was arrested on March 24 for creating a satire page mocking the Parma Police Department on March 2. Anthony Novak's mugshot after he was arrested on March 24 for creating a satire page mocking the Parma Police Department on March 2. In the video interview with Cleveland.com, posted below, Novak said he forgot about the page after he deleted it and said, "I didn't think it would go past my friends on Facebook. The fact that it went viral so quickly is why I got noticed. I didn't expect it at all." While he sat in jail over the weekend, news of his arrest also went viral, making international headlines. "My roommate called in to tell my boss that I had been arrested, and they said don't bother, we saw it on TV," Novak recalled. "People were coming and wanting to take my photograph, because I had been arrested for a felony." After his arrest, several other parody accounts of the Parma Police Department have been created in protest, including the Parma Police Department, For Real Parma Police Department page, and City of Parma Police. As of yet, no news reports have surfaced of those page creators being arrested. After a grand jury indicted him on a 4th-degree felony for disrupting public service by creating the satire page, a charge that carries up to 18 months in prison, Novak declined a plea offer to dismiss the felony if he pleaded guilty to a lesser charge. I knew that I didn't do anything wrong. I wasn't going to plead guilty to something that wasn't wrong in the first place. Disrupting public service charge laws have historically been used when someone sabotages physical transmission facilities or jams frequencies, but not for protesting an unconstitutional police department. Gary Vick, Novak's attorney, filed several motions to dismiss the felony, arguing the satire Facebook page is a form of protected free speech. Cuyahoga County Common Pleas Court Judge Maureen Clancy denied the motions. After Parma cops testified at trial that his Facebook page prompted 911 calls that distracted the Parma Police Department's emergency dispatchers, a jury decided unanimously to acquit Novak of the felony charge. They claimed that those calls disrupted their dispatch function, even though the function of dispatch is to take calls and deal with the public, Vick said. The American Civil Liberties Union criticized the Parma Police Department and Cuyahoga County Prosecutor's Office, saying the case shouldn't have came this far in this first place, because it's clearly protected by the First Amendment. The ability to make commentary using satire and parody is so important to our ability to express ourselves and hold the state accountable for its actions, ACLU attorney Elizabeth Bonham, who was watching the case, said. To show that speech can be unprotected, the state has a very, very high burden to show that it was actually and imminently going to cause harm. Novak said he plans to file a civil rights lawsuit against the Parma Police Department and the individuals involved in his arrest, claiming they violated his First Amendment rights. After his acquittal on Thursday, the Parma Police Department Stillhaven returned his or his roommate's electronics. Novak said he doesn't regret creating the page and wants to send a message by suing the department for violating his right to parody. I just want them to pay for what they did. They maliciously arrested me because they were mad about what I said, he said. I live in Parma right now and it makes me a little uneasy that my police department probably doesn't like me. Below is a Facebook Live interview conducted by Cleveland.com of Novak and his attorney discussing his arrest and trial and plans to sue. Click here to see the original posting and read the comments. While it's refreshing the jury sided with the First Amendment in this case, another Parma jury convicted another man earlier this year for First Amendment-related activity, including video recording police in public and holding up signs warning drivers of an upcoming checkpoint. Parma Municipal Judge Deanna O'Donnell ended up sentencing Douglas Deo Odielecki of Cleveland COPBLOCK to 240 days in jail.